What's up? Hey guys, sorry it's been a while since I've made a video. This month's been a little hectic. A lot of stuff has happened, but most recently, if you can't tell by my voice, my wife and I had COVID-19, baby. It was a good time. We were bedridden. We were super sick. I still have sinus congestion. I still sound horrific. And apologies in advance if this video kind of feels all over the place, because I kind of still have foggy COVID brain a little bit, and I kind of gave up on the script for this video like halfway through because it was genuinely making me mad and upset. Today we're gonna talk about a movie that I watched that I really hated. It's Halloween, baby. It's October, you know? It's that time of year where Hollywood is just shoving scary movies in your face, you know? The theaters are just full of good old-fashioned, highly anticipated horror films like Halloween Ends, The Invitation, Lyle Crocodile. But one thing Hollywood likes to do to save a little bit of cash is to take an already existing horror property, usually something foreign or something classic, taking the idea, redoing it, and putting it out as, you know, a remake or a reboot. They've done this countless times, especially with horror films. The Ring, Let the Right One In, The Grudge. This year they did it again. They took a foreign film and converted it into good old-fashioned American cinema, and it was a movie that I don't think anybody asked for, and that movie is Goodnight Mommy. Luckily, this movie didn't get a theatrical release. It was just put on Amazon Prime, which is what I would consider to be the Walmart $5 Blu-ray bin of streaming services. And again, I'm pretty sure nobody asked for this. I remember when I saw the trailer pop up as like an ad before a YouTube video, I audibly gasped and was like, oh no, oh no, what have you done? Please no, don't ruin it. Because I genuinely love the original Austrian Goodnight Mommy. I think it's fantastic. I remember the first time I watched it, falling in love with its style and its atmosphere, and then the twist ending just being like mind-blowing at the time. And I know that I'm not the only fan of the original. I know it's got quite a bit of like a cult following here in America, but I don't think that bit of fandom was enough to justify an Americanized version. And before I really dive into it, I will be upfront and say that this remake is really bad. Like, it sucks. It's horrible. And not even just because of the fact that it's a remake. Let's say the original didn't exist and the American Goodnight Mommy was just a new original horror film that was made and put out on Amazon Prime. It would still suck. Like, it's not good at all. But yeah, it was just shoved on Amazon. It didn't get a lot of promotion as far as I could tell, and I don't think a lot of people watched it, which I guess is a good thing, but here I am talking about it. Everything about this movie blows. Like, it's really bad. The performances are horrific. The two boys are so annoying. The cinematography is bland and basic. Each scene feels like it was a first take. The script is a crime. There's not like an ounce of emotional or thought-provoking dialogue. This version's like 10 minutes shorter than the original version, but somehow it feels like 40 minutes longer. There's like nothing in the movie to grab you that you can like emotionally invest in. It's just so bland and boring. In my opinion, that's like the worst thing you could do as a horror movie is be boring. There's plenty of horror movies out there that are nice slow burns, like the original, for example, that you could find boring in some parts, but eventually give you good enough payoff in the end to make all of the waiting worth it. This movie does not have that. Like, for instance, there's scenes in this movie where you're supposed to feel bad for the two brothers, but they're so annoying and don't do anything that you're kind of just rooting for their pain. Naomi Watts is in the remake, who's done good things. She's also done not good things in recent years, but she's, you know, got Mulholland Drive under her belt. That's something to be proud of. But yeah, in this, she just gives off one of the most boring, transparent performances I think I've ever seen ever. She gives absolutely nothing to this character. There's no Naomi Watts spin. It was like the director was like, hey Naomi, we want you to be angry in this scene. And she just did the first thing her brain thought of when it thought of be an angry mom. And then she would act angry, and then the director would be like, all right, great, cut, awesome, next scene. Speaking of the director, I've never seen anything else that he's done. According to IMDb, the only other thing he's really done is like a couple of shorts and a few episodes of a Netflix show called Brand New Cherry Flavor. I've never heard of this show. I've never seen it. You know, according to IMDb, it doesn't have great reviews, so you know. And I really hope he takes this Goodnight Mommy remake as a learning experience, and he kind of, if he does get another project, kind of learns from his mistakes and does a little better next time, maybe something original, you know. Yeah, so overall I'm giving the Goodnight Mommy remake a 0.5 out of 5 because it is horrendous. I can honestly say that I despised this movie, and you may be thinking a lot of that hatred is coming from a bias of loving the original Goodnight Mommy, which in some ways is probably true, but you know, if you've never seen the original one, go ahead and watch this remake first, and I think you will agree that this movie just sucks. But if you actually want to watch a good movie, watch the Austrian version. It's so much better. Now that I kind of got the rating out of the way, I want to actually dive in and kind of compare the two movies. So this is my official spoiler warning. And since both movies are called Goodnight Mommy, I want to avoid confusion. So we're going to call the original Goodnight Mommy, and we will call the remake, Goodnight Poopy. We're going to call it Goodnight Poopy. The main plot of the film is that these twin brothers, Lucas and Elias, are going to stay with their mother. But whenever they show up to her house, she's covered in bandages from like a plastic surgery or like facial reconstruction something. And she's acting a little bit different than normal. She's a lot more aggressive and mean. This leads the brothers to believe that the person under the bandages is not really their mother. So they start to mess with her, pull some pranks on her, and try to force her to tell them where their mother is. Cool little pranks like tying her up and throwing ice water in her face, super gluing her mouth shut, and putting bugs in her mouth while she sleeps. You know, cool little harmless childish pranks. Anyway, the big plot twist at the end is when you realize that one of the brothers has actually been dead the whole time and has actually been a figment of the other brother's imagination. Like, the main brother sees his twin brother, plays games with him, talks to him, wrestles with him, but come to find out he's the only one who can actually see him. Now, for me, when I watched Goodnight Mommy for the first time and that twist happened, I was genuinely shocked. Like an audible, what came out of my mouth. It was a huge shock that really like made you go back and think of the rest of the movie and like reanalyze things, and you go, holy crap, how did I not see that from the beginning? Because there's things where you realize like where the mother's not interacting with both of the kids. Whenever she like makes breakfast, she only puts breakfast down for like one of the kids and stuff like that. But then you also realize that the reason the mom isn't acting like herself is because she's grieving her dead son. Like, she's gone through a lot as well. And so where the kids are like, mom's been mean recently, it's because she's sad and she's grieving and mourning her dead son. The twist in Goodnight Mommy, awesome, chef's kiss. However, in Goodnight Poopy, the twist is incredibly obvious from the jump. Now you might be saying, Cody, well obviously it's because you're watching Goodnight Poopy with the lenses of already knowing the twist. Sure, you could say that. But I also went back and rewatched the original Goodnight Mommy after I watched the remake, also with the glasses of already knowing the twist. It pulls off all the stuff in the beginning so much better. Like, the movie is way more subtle with the fact that this brother is actually dead. For example, there's a shot in the beginning where the two brothers are like walking through the woods or something like that, and you just see one of them. The camera's like from the back, and you just see one of them walking, and then the other one kind of like comes out in front of him, where it looks like the brother like comes from the other brother. Very weird, but I noticed it on my second viewing, like, oh, visually that looks super dope. And then there's also things in Goodnight Mommy that are just like, again, super subtle, just like bits of dialogue that you don't piece together until after you know the twist, and like things where the other brother will go and hide whenever the mom gets mad, so that she's just yelling, you know, at the one kid who's actually there, and you can kind of play off like, oh, well, she didn't yell at the other brother because he went and hid. You know, it's just stuff like that where after you know the twist, you go back and you pick up on those things. Even on a rewatch, you're like, oh, that makes sense because he's dead, he's not actually there. Now, with Goodnight Poopy, it's so much more obvious because the dead brother will do things like straight up disappear. He'll just like be there in the room for 1 second, and then the mom comes in and boop, he's gone. He's nowhere to be found. And Goodnight Mommy, whenever the dead brother wants to talk to the main brother while the mom's in the room, he'll like whisper into her ear. He's like, and then the brother will repeat what he said. So on your first viewing, you're like, oh, the brother's just shy. But in Goodnight Poopy, the dead brother will just like audibly talk to the brother and the mom while she's in the room, and she'll just ignore him, and the brother's like, well, didn't you hear him? And there's just stupid stuff like that. There's also a part in Goodnight Poopy where Naomi Watts is on the phone with, I think, their dad, and she's like, you gotta come pick them up. You gotta come pick up the kids. I'm tired of pretending. And, you know, I guess it's supposed to throw you with like, she's tired of pretending of being their mom. Like, you're supposed to think like it's not really their mom under the bandages. But no, you obviously are like, oh, she's tired of pretending that the brother's still alive. Goodnight Poopy just makes some decisions where it was like they watched the original and were like, oh, we will do this in our version, but we're gonna miss the point entirely. So like there's a scene in the original where the kids are outside jumping on a trampoline while the mom is upstairs in her room, and she like gets ready or whatever. So she's standing there, you know, changing her clothes and everything. And it's a very weird, like somewhat sensual scene. And what I got out of it, at least, is that, you know, she's kind of like observing herself, taking time to like, you know, see how she's changing. You know, she's gotten her face redone. I don't think I mentioned this earlier, but, you know, she's a famous actress, you know, in where she lives. She's like a TV host or something like that, and you know, she's worried about her figure, and so she's checking that. Then there's a version of that in Goodnight Poopy where instead of the kids being out on the trampoline, one of the kids is hiding in the mom's closet, and he just watches her strip in front of a mirror, and it's super uncomfortable and it's super weird. And it was like the writers and the directors were just like, well, there's this somewhat sensual scene in the original, let's make Naomi Watts strip in front of this kid. It's super weird and I hated it. It's my least favorite scene in the entire movie. Let's also take a second to talk about the bandages for a second. In the original Goodnight Mommy, the bandages are terrifying. They're like actual medical bandages where she's wrapping up her face like a mummy. She kind of looks like Owen Wilson in Darjeeling Limited. Like she's got the pad on her nose and like her eye sockets are like dark, and she's got like, you know, scarring and stuff like that. In Goodnight Poopy, it just looks like just like a pullover like ski mask thing. What is it called? Yeah, a balaclava. In Goodnight Mommy, she's bandaged up. In Goodnight Poopy, she's got on the shiesty mask. It just doesn't work. It just looks horrible. And I think the reason they did that had to have been just because Naomi Watts would just show up 10 minutes before she had to film. They're like, throw this on. We don't have time to put bandages on you. Like it's such a bad mask. Like the entire time my wife and I were watching it, we just could not. It was so distracting how like you could see through it. Like with Goodnight Mommy, the kids are like, we can't tell if you are our mom because we can't see you. In Goodnight Poopy, you can clearly see through that mask. Like it's sheer. Like there, you can see her face entirely underneath it. Other things to compare it on. Goodnight Mommy is way more disturbing from a like visual standpoint, like what they do to the mom. Because in Goodnight Mommy, these kids like torture their mom. Like they have her tied up. Like I said, they put bugs in her mouth. They super glue her mouth. She's in bed for days. Like she's peeing herself on this bed. She's covered in sweat and pee, and it's just disgusting. In Goodnight Poopy, they have her tied up with like duct tape in the bed for like half a day, and they throw ice water on her. Like that's it. Like that's all they do to her. The kids in Goodnight Poopy are incredibly annoying. I wanted them to shut up every time they talked.
What if she didn't sing it because she didn't know the words? She sang it every bedtime.
She's just an annoying little like 12-year-old. The other thing is too, this will be the last thing that I kind of compare them on, is how the brother died. In the original one, there is a super subtle hint of how the brother died. It is hinted that the brother drowned while the two of them were out playing like on a lake. It is so subtle that I didn't pick up on it until like my second rewatch. One of the brothers is just laying out floating on the water, and he looks up and he's like, Lucas? And then it cuts to black, and then it says Goodnight Mommy, and the movie starts. In the American version, do you want to take a guess on how the brother dies? The hint is it's the American version. I'll let you guess. I'll take some time to let you guess. Did you guess that he got shot? Then you'd be right. Yeah, the brother accidentally shot him while they were playing with a gun in the barn. Pretty different, I guess I would say. And it's so cheesy how it's revealed, and it's just so bad. Yeah, so long story short, the American remake sucks, and Hollywood needs to stop. Hollywood, if you're listening to me, call me, because I could send you some recommendations on people you should hire to make good original horror content. You don't need to be stealing these different ideas from other countries and other successful IPs. Just give me the keys to the kingdom. You know, let me make the choices for a change. So if you're gonna watch them, I recommend the Austrian version. Obviously, check that out. I don't know if it's streaming anywhere. So if you're like, nah, I don't want to pay for it, go ahead and watch the remake. It sucks. Anyways, I'm Cody Metcalf. Thank you for watching.
Hey, it's Shawn Mendes, the voice of Lyle. We're so excited for you to see the new trailer for our new movie, Lyle, Lyle, Crocodile.